Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a bit of a shortcut, really, to getting properly informed about athletic performance, and we're doing it through the lens of, well, a really influential book. Our source for this deep dive is a detailed review of Dr. Hardiyal Singh's Science of Sports Training. And our mission basically is to unpack the core ideas and the practical stuff that have made this book, a real gold standard in the field, especially in the Indian sports system, apparently. Okay, so let's unpack this. So, looking through the review, this name just kept popping up. Dr. Hardayal Singh and his book, Science of Sports Training, it's described pretty consistently as one of the most authoritative texts out there. Comprehensive, too, covers the principles, the methods, the actual application of sports training. And yeah, it seems it's very widely used. Students, coaches, professionals, particularly in India.
It is quite remarkable, isn't it? And I think the reason it resonates so much is that it doesn't just list principles like a textbook might. It systematically breaks down the science behind training. But then, and this is crucial, it shows you how to apply that theory to actually improve performance tangibly. It really bridges that gap,
Yeah.
between the academic knowledge and what you do on the field.
That practical connection sounds, yeah, invaluable. And the review mentioned it serves a really wide range of people. We're talking physical education students, right? BPE, MPE folks. Also, UGC net aspirants, prepping for exams, coaches, trainers, obviously, even athletes themselves who want to get the science behind what they're doing, and researchers, too, looking for that solid base.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground.
So really, whether you're prepping for a meeting on sports science or maybe just trying to catch up on the field or, just genuinely curious about how athletes get so good, this deep dive is for you.
What's fascinating is just how broad the application is. It cuts across so many different needs. One thing that really jumped out from the review was just how comprehensive it is, the sheer scope. I mean, looking at the list of topics, it's kind of wild. It goes from the absolute basics, the principles of training,
Right.
all the way through to things like psychological prep, even talent ID. How does it manage all that without feeling, I don't know, spread too thin? That's actually one of its great strengths. It's not just a list. The scientific explanation part is key. Dr. Singh, he really integrates the physiology, the biomechanics, the psychology, weaves them right into the training concepts. So you don't just learn what to do, you really grasp why it works. On a deeper level, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about seeing the athlete as an integrated system, the whole human body in sport, not just isolated parts, which was, quite a forward-thinking approach for when it was written.
That integration sounds, yeah, really powerful. Does he manage to make that complex science accessible, though? Or do you kind of need a science background already to really get it? And building on that, what are some of the absolute must-know concepts the book really details for, like effective training?
He does make it accessible, yeah, but without dumbing it down.
Yeah.
He respects the science. A really big focus, for instance, is on load and adaptation. It's not just manage your training load. He actually talks about the principle of optimal load, which gives this, well, surprisingly detailed way to figure out when to push harder and, just as importantly, when to ease off. And he links it to things like recovery biomarkers,
Yeah.
actual signs of how the body's coping.
Ah, okay.
Which, again, was pretty advanced thinking. It helps avoid that trap of just thinking more is always better,
Yeah.
which, as we know, often leads straight to overtraining or injury.
Yeah, getting that load and recovery balance right. That sounds crucial. Okay, so once you've got a handle on the load, how does the book help coaches actually structure the training, over a season or maybe even longer?
Right, that brings us to periodization. And that's definitely one of the book's highlights. It breaks training down into these cycles. You've got microcycles, mesocycles, macrocycles. Think of a microcycle as like your weekly plan. A mesocycle is a block of several weeks, building towards something specific. And the macrocycle, well, that's the big picture, the whole year, or maybe even a 4-year Olympic cycle. Dr. Singh lays out a really clear method for preparing athletes systematically, making sure they peak when it counts.
Sounds like a solid roadmap for planning. But what about the actual execution, the skills, the movements themselves? How does it help with refining technique?
It gives skill training and technique really thorough coverage, too. It goes deep into motor learning, which is basically, how our brain and body learn and refine movements.
Right.
It details the steps, the drills, how you improve technique, how you acquire skills, and that's vital for everyone, isn't it? Whether you're a beginner just learning the basics or an elite athlete trying to perfect really complex skills under pressure.
We talk a lot about the physical side, obviously, but the mental game, that's huge too. Does the book give that enough weight?
Oh, absolutely. It dedicates significant space to psychological preparation. It covers things like motivation, how to concentrate, managing stress, dealing with competition pressure. And not just theoretically, it connects these mental aspects directly to how they impact physical performance,
Yeah.
which gives the whole thing a really holistic feel. It reminds you that an athlete isn't just a machine. The mind is absolutely critical. And that raises an important question, doesn't it? Like, how much of peak performance is really physical versus how much is down to that often underestimated mental strength?
Good point. And you mentioned earlier it has a strong connection to a specific region.
Yes, that's right. It's noted for being particularly tailored to the Indian context. So it takes these global scientific principles, but it maps them onto the specifics of the Indian sports environment, which makes it incredibly useful, obviously, for students and coaches working within that particular system. It just makes the information feel immediately relevant.
Okay, so pulling all this together,
Okay.
what does it all mean? What are the big strengths here, and why has it had such a lasting impact?
Well, the strengths are pretty clear, I think. First off, it's written in simple, understandable language. It makes complex stuff accessible without losing the science.
That's key.
The chapters are really well structured too. You can build your knowledge step by step. It's packed with scientific examples, diagrams, and crucially, it gives practical training guidelines, stuff coaches can actually use.
Right.
And it covers all of the bases: physical, technical, tactical, and psychological training. So yeah, incredibly useful for exams, but also just for becoming a better coach or understanding training better. It's foundational for a reason.
But like you said, things move fast in sports science, even a gold standard book from a while back.
Yeah.
It must have some areas where it shows its age, right? What are the limitations people point out now?
You're right, absolutely. And it's fair to acknowledge that. For one, some parts might feel a bit heavy on the theory if you're coming in completely cold with zero physiology background.
Yeah.
A bigger limitation, probably given when it was first published,
Mm.
is that it doesn't cover a lot of the modern tech. Things like, GPS tracking for load monitoring, advanced sports analytics, some of the newer recovery tools, stuff that's pretty common now in high-performance sports.
Yeah, technology's moved on.
Exactly. Also, maybe the diagrams and illustrations could be a bit more modern, perhaps more engaging with color and so on. And naturally, it won't have references to the very latest research papers just due to its publication timeline. But what's interesting here, I think, is that these limitations, they don't really feel like flaws in the original work. They mostly just highlight how incredibly fast sports science keeps evolving. It makes constant learning essential in this field.
So to sort of wrap up this deep dive then, Dr. Hardiyal Singh's Science of Sports Training is clearly a cornerstone text. It really does seem to masterfully balance that complex theory with practical, usable advice, offering this detailed scientific guide that's, well, really stood the test of time. And hopefully this discussion encourages you, our listener, to appreciate how getting a handle on these core principles from a source like this gives you such a strong framework. It provides a really solid base, even as, sports science keeps innovating and bringing in new tech all the time.
Yeah, and maybe this raises a final and important question for you to think about. How might really understanding these foundational scientific principles, the why behind training, empower you? How can it help you critically look at all the new training fads, the new gadgets, the methodologies that keep popping up, and evaluate them properly, rather than just jumping on the bandwagon, knowing what actually underpins real athletic performance?